You know, it was kind of scary because here I am, my gun's all the way tucked away, and he has a gun, and all of a sudden he points a gun at me and says, "Don't, you know, you better not be a cop. You know, we're not going to do this. We're not going to mess around. I'm going to take you out right now. I'm going to take you out right now." I'm like, yo, calm down, calm down. Something called me, and it happened in 9/11, and from there I kept it so close to me, and I felt like I needed to serve and give back to the community. And when I saw the police officers in that building, and when I saw the firefighters, it didn't sit well with me that I wasn't doing something about it. So it was tough. You know, that transition, and we were just married. You know, we had a boy on the way. It was a hell of a transition, you know, to go from there, and then basically lost it all. We lost our house, lost cars, everything, repossessed here, foreclosure there, everything, because I wanted to pursue and that need to serve. So that was tremendous learning time in my life. But I believe that it made me a better man, and that's the path that God wanted me to be on. And this is where I stand today, better than I've ever been.
Guys, today on the show, I have someone truly special. His name is Rafa. You may know him online as Man of War. Rafa is a former narcotics officer, DEA task force officer, and a SWAT operator turned entrepreneur, best-selling author, and one of the most sought-after leadership consultants in the game, with over 250,000 followers on Instagram and podcasts that have crossed 50 million downloads. But here's what makes today's conversation different. Rafa walked away from a high-paying career in corporate America, real money, real comfort, and took a massive pay cut to become a cop. Not because he had to, because he felt called to serve. And today, we get into all of it, the sacrifice, the mindset, what it actually meant to choose purpose over a paycheck, and how that decision shaped everything he's built since. This is one of those episodes that hits different. Let's get into it. Rafa, tell us why you go by the Man of War.
All right, before we start, thank you for having me on. All right, and I am with you, same energy. We met, you know, it was, you made it to my podcast. You basically, I remember it was raining, pouring. It was just, and I appreciate you for being on. And from that podcast on, it was, I said to my assistant and my team, I said, this guy has good energy. I like him. And not every podcast guest, I have that connect with. So I appreciate you having me here. I appreciate, obviously cultivating a relationship. That's important. And I think you're a hell of a man. And I think that you stand for something so strong that not many men stand for nowadays. So I respect that. And to me, it's an honor to be here. And let's rock and roll, man.
Ditto. It's funny. South Florida is a very weird place. And I've been here since 1987. And I've had some good friends. And as you know, I was incarcerated. And I had some really close relationships and partners. And I could barely get them to pick up the phone. And the guys that you would know, the guys that built South Florida.
Sure.
And until I actually started to speak my mind and have a voice and get on podcasts like your venue, okay, and actually talk things and then realize, you know what? What I'm doing isn't about making money. It is about creating awareness of what's really going on in the world. Now, I'm not super political, and I talk a little bit about my belief in God, but there was just an instant where I met you, and it was right away, and said, somehow I want to have a friendship with this guy. And as someone who is in his 60s, guy friends, I have my guy friends that I'm friends with, that I can call and whatever. And I actually just got into an argument with one of my closest friends this week. Actually, it was last week. And I called him out on something. Very wealthy guy. And I called him out on somebody that he was spending time with. And I don't particularly think the guy's a good guy. And I had to tell him how I felt.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't decide to tell him until after I spoke with his oldest son. Because I'm like family. I knew his dad and all his children. And I spoke with his oldest son, and he's like, you know what? We all feel the same way, but he's not going to listen to any of us. Maybe he'll listen to you.
Oh.
So I had this conversation with him, and he told me to go F myself. So, but he did text me the other day. He said maybe I was a little harsh. So I'll reach out to him before Shabbos, because Shabbos comes like Thanksgiving every Friday for me. And I don't have that many close friends. That's why I wanted to have dinner. I wanted your wife to meet Tatiana, who is something that's important for me. But tell me, what was it like doing what you did in law enforcement? Were you ever scared? Did you ever say, holy shit, this is the end? Were you ever in a position after discharging your firearm? Did you ever wonder whether it was right or wrong?
That's a complex question. It's there's so many elements to it. The word scared, frightened, sure. I mean, you feel that in law enforcement, but we talk about courage. You move in spite of fear, right? That's what courage is. So it was one of the reasons that I transferred my life from being a Wall Street broker, right, to a cop and doing the things that I did.
And that wasn't easy, was it?
Oh, that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I mean, that's, if you were going to tell me law enforcement, that was the hardest transition, I don't think my wife that's sitting across from us now, she doesn't really understand how difficult it was and the burden on my shoulders, how I took that. But it was very difficult. But going back to your question about courage and about discharging a firearm, yes. I mean, there's so many questions when you are in an officer-involved shooting, or you are in a situation where, man, you're in the alley in the middle of nowhere, fighting, a guy with a gun, with drugs. You're always in the zone, and you're expecting. In your mind, you're expecting to get hurt, but you're going to move no matter what, right? Because it's almost like it comes with the job at times. You're like, and if you come out unscathed, there's a power there, and that's when you drop down and you say, thank you, God, and you give grace, and you give, you have tremendous gratitude for being alive the next day. I've been in so many situations like that. We can have a 10-hour podcast, and I could tell you situations that, working in one of the most violent cities in the entire United States, going from, imagine, Wall Street, suit and tie, everything comfortable, sitting behind a desk, making, a shitload of money. And then the next thing you know, you're sitting across from your wife saying, hey, I want to go from making almost $1 million a year to 38 grand. I mean, you talk about courage
and nervousness. That's not $1 million a year this year.
No,
it's $1 million a year 35 years ago.
It was in the, when I was on Wall Street, I came in basically in the 1990s. But when I transitioned from law enforcement, it was 2004. So 22 years ago.
That's like $3 to $4 million a year.
Yeah.
That's considerable money.
Yeah.
Serious money.
Yeah. So, to do that, and people, the thing is, Mark, people ask me, why the hell would you do something like that? Why would you go from having such a great career and building it, and by now I would probably have multiple branches and a firm, and I could be doing great, and maybe even thinking about real retirement with, just a different, from a different perspective. But something called me, and it happened in 9/11, and from there I kept it so close to me, and I felt like I needed to serve and give back to the community. And when I saw the police officers in that building, and when I saw the firefighters, it didn't sit well with me that I wasn't doing something about it, and so it was tough, that transition. And we were just married, we had a boy on the way. It was a hell of a transition, to go from there, and then, basically lost it all. We lost our house, lost cars, everything, repossessed here, foreclosure there, everything, because I wanted to pursue and that need to serve. So that was tremendous learning time in my life. But I believe that it made me a better man, and that's the path that God wanted me to be on. And this is where I stand today, better than I've ever been.
Have you had this talk with your kids?
My conversations with my boys is sometimes we go deep. They've seen it. They were there. They were, they were younger. They don't quite still, I think, to this day, understand the magnitude and how I had to figure out a way to, put food on the table, to keep a shelter over us. Because, at 38,000, and I say this, and maybe part of the story here, I was divorced prior. And my ex-wife took half my paycheck. So I want you to think about, you're making, $1,400 every 2 weeks, and split that in half. That's about $700 that I was taking home every 2 weeks, $700-800, maybe even less. And I'm living, I got kids to feed, a brand new wife. We're starting our life. And it's tough.
What was the most difficult conversation with your wife after you made this decision?
Oh my goodness. There was a lot of different conversations, from figuring things out, like, how were we going to get to the next day or the next week, or how can we keep a shelter, over us? I think I've said this to you before, but the impact point for me, and that breaking point that I said, okay, this is the shift happens now, was when my wife had a baby, had her baby boy in her arms. She walked in. I don't remember if it was Starbucks or a coffee shop, or I don't know where she was. But she calls me and she walks out. And when she walks out, she says to me, "Hey, I think somebody stole our car." Or I think she was driving an SUV at that time. I told you that. Yeah. And here I am. I'm in the, I'm patrolling. And when I get that call, it's like, I already know. I told her they repossessed the car. It's 3 months late. And I know that was it. And that just broke my heart, thinking that she's there standing with a baby in her arms, okay? And that car just got swept from her. That insecurity and that uncertainty, no. And then on top of that, she married a stockbroker. There was a certain sense of security. There was a certain sense of understanding that this is my job and I come home, right? Here it was, I was working at midnights. Who knows what was happening? She would see me on the news. She would see, how violent the city was. And it was just a whole shift. So I don't know if she's here. There's a lot of credit that I have to give her, a tremendous amount of credit, to stay hard and strong throughout that process, because she knew, and I think she believed in me, that she knew that I needed to go through this journey to become the man that I am today. Yeah.
Any regret?
Well, there's, in my life, if I look back and I say, would I have done this a different way? Well, maybe yes. Maybe I would have been smarter with the money that I made on Wall Street, invested it properly. I was young, I get it. But maybe I would have done a better job with that. And had enough maybe stored away or an investment that would have carried us for the first few years. But I didn't have it. I mean, it was just pretty much wiped out. I mean, it carried us for maybe 6 months, and then it was over. And keep in mind, I was living in a really nice home in a country club, and we were driving nice cars. It was a nice feeling when she married me. It was like, okay, I'm going into this. And then all of a sudden to go from that to driving, junky cars to get by, having rentals, renting a house for a year, and then going to another one for another year, and then going to another one for another year. That was, I go back and I say, no fucking way that's going to ever happen again.
Did you ever question your decision? Or wait, how many times did you question your decision?
100 times. 100 times over. But I came back to center. All right, I came back. And that center is very powerful because I said, you know what? God, give me a sign telling me that I should not be walking this path right now. And it was like almost like he centered me and said, you know what? You must stay on this path. You must stay on this path. And I know eventually something is going to happen here. And something powerful is going to happen out of this. That's what I had. Remember though, I mean, throughout this time frame, my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in. And I had, I started contacting people. I got a lot of training, SWAT training, different types of firearms training experience. I started teaching in the police academy. And then I started making contacts in Latin America. They reached out to me. And then all of a sudden, I went over there. I did one training element for their police force and the commando school. And the next thing you know, wow, they're calling me and I'm signing a contract with them. And I start building a tactical training company. And the next thing is I'm traveling every couple of months to Peru. And I'm taking all my sick time, all my vacation time, all of it to travel 3, 4, 5 days at a time to go do my tactical training and bring home these, few $1,000s that helped out. So I figured a way to circumvent, the way that most cops live, which is work details, off-duty details.
Right,
making $40-50 an hour, and then they have no time with their family. They have zero time, and I figured, you know what? I'd rather just build a company as I move along here, and and then figure it out as I go. But I'm building something. So that happened a few years into law enforcement, and when I started shifting into narcotics, and I started shifting into SWAT and police academy training and things like that.
When you were making this transition, did you ever question that you were making this transition for the wrong reason?
Not once.
Not once.
Not once.
So you knew this was from above?
Yes, without a doubt. I knew in my heart that I was doing the right thing. How painful it was at that time, that's another story. Very difficult. But I knew that at that time, it was the right thing to do, and something was going to come out of this, that I was going to be stronger for it. And my thoughts in my head were never just to retire and from law enforcement and then just chill out like most guys do.
Right.
Okay. My thoughts were, I'm building, and eventually I'll have another season or another phase in my life, but I'll be better because I did these almost 18 and a half years in law enforcement.
Did you ever shoot anybody?
Yes.
Did they die?
No. I was involved in multiple, shootings, officer-involved shootings, and no, both times they did not die. And I am happy about that, because killing someone is as bad as it, sometimes bad people, but it's tough. It's tough to swallow. But someone did die during one of our operations, and I still hold that, and it still hurts me, and it still bothers me a lot, and I keep it inside. It was a young man during one of our undercover operations, and we were under investigation by the state attorney's office and everything. It was a full IA operation, and it sucks because this young man, it didn't have to be that way, and it had nothing to do with shooting. It had to do that, he decided to put the pills, the drugs, in a plastic bag and swallow them. And as we're taking him out of the car and arresting him, he's inhaling the bag, and the bag gets stuck in the back of his throat.
So his windpipe got jammed.
And here we are giving him CPR, doing everything we can to bring him back. That still stays with me, because he was a young man, early 20s, I believe. And he put himself in a precarious situation.
Not a good situation. No.
So that sticks with me.
Have you ever had to go to therapy to deal with some of these demons?
Yes, but I'll be honest, I don't operate that way. As a matter of fact, and my wife will tell you that after we got multiple times that I was involved in shootings, I slept like a baby that night. There was nothing like...
Well, you're doing your job.
Yeah, like there's nothing in my mind that I was restless about. Now, during this particular operation where we went, this way, I was a little bit uneasy, but I've learned through time that you put it in God's hands. And as long as you did the right thing, and you did the right thing, there's nothing to worry about. Even if they find you guilty or whatever, I still give it to God, and I still look at it from that perspective.
Did you ever have a conflict where you had to defend yourself without your sidearm, with your own hands?
Yes, several times. In the city that I worked for, there were several times where, sometimes you would be, working narcotics, you would go undercover, and sometimes you would have, not that you were unarmed, but you may have your gun hidden somewhere else and not on you at that moment. We did some reverse, some buys, or even reverse buys. You would, if you were in a car, maybe you would put your gun underneath your thigh or on the side, and one of the times, I think, it was the investigation. When I say the investigation that we were conducting was really about this is a Mexican guy, okay, that came, and I remember this like it was yesterday. We were conducting an investigation on a Mexican cartel leader and out of Boynton Beach, and he came and met us. We sold some, cocaine to him during that time, and I remember that he sat in the back seat instead of the front seats, and it was wow. It was kind of scary, because here I am, my gun's all the way tucked away, and he has a gun, and all of a sudden he points a gun at me and says, "Don't, you better not be a cop. We're not going to do this. We're not going to mess around. I'm going to take you out right now. I'm going to take you out right now." I'm like, yo, calm down. And So we walk over to one of the cars where the cocaine was, you know, where it was parked and it had the cocaine in the rear, in the trunk. Man, I open the trunk and he's testing it and so on. And I'm trying to give the takedown signal because opening the trunk was technically the takedown signal for my takedown units. And I open the trunk and he's there, and my takedown units aren't there. They're not coming there. I don't know what's happening.
Why?
I don't know. Just to this day, they tell me they responded perfectly on time, but it seemed like it was literally 3 minutes by the time they got there. I guess the time you're in such a state of heightened awareness that everything seems so long, right?
How do you keep from your adrenaline to spiking so high in those moments?
Well, studying Zen for a very long time. I studied Zazen for a very long time. Meditation, breathing, control, clarity of mind, all of that in the martial arts. I mean, I've been doing it for 40 years plus. And to me, it was just more about controlling your breath and calming yourself down, just bringing it down. I almost, when I get into a hyper situation like that, things tend to slow down. They really do. They tend to slow down. So for me, it was that. But other cops, you know, we teach a certain principle of tactical breathing, where it's just breathe, 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 you know, control your breath. And you stay highly focused on the situation at hand. That's the most important thing, to stay focused on the situation at hand. If you start thinking about what could happen or what might happen, that's when you start getting disoriented and you start getting nervous and you start breathing heavy, and then you get super high stress level, okay? But I've always taught, and throughout my training, is you focus on what is happening at that moment. You do not think about anything else, right? You're thinking about what's happening and how you can either efficiently de-escalate it or, you know, efficiently, unfortunately, you have to use, you know, deadly force or whatever force you need to do to control, to escalate to control that, situation. So, yeah, I mean, it's, when you're under stress like that, you have to know how to really control your breath. It's all about your breathing. It's not about so much about your, it's about your mind, it's about your breath. Yeah.
Have you been following the news about this former mayor in North Miami Beach?
No.
I was watching.
Tell me about that.
Former mayor of North Miami Beach, they just busted him out for some pretty large quantities of drugs, meth, cocaine, and he was considered a nice guy, considered a good guy.
And he was, I guess, trafficking is
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty heavy trafficking. So, and it's weird because I have a friend who lives in our building, and he is in the violent crimes unit of the FBI. Okay, and he's always in his undercover cruiser, which is a Ford Explorer, gray, you know, and then he has the Dodge Challenger, and his name is Mark, like mine, and I'm always asking him, you know, hey, did you shoot anybody this week? I see him all the time. I'm like, Mark, did you shoot anybody this week? Did you shoot anybody this week? And he's like, nope, never tells me, nope. So I can't wait for Tatiana to actually meet him. Lovely guy, and he always tells me, he goes, hey, you know, here's my number. If you ever need me for anything, just call me. Yeah. I said, it's all right. I said, I have a sidearm. I can shoot it, you know. I said, it stops a lot of people, just the sight of it. So,
yeah.
As a kid, growing up, did you ever have something that you saw that now, as an adult, you realize it in a much different perception? Like a father taking a hand to his kids, I watched. I was a little kid, and my father and his friend, we got picked on by some older kids, and they went over and they slapped him around. And my dad wasn't a violent guy. Mr. Sinatra was a tough guy. Have you run into that today?
Well, it's funny you say that, because we just had 2 days ago our father and son program. It's our, we have them all over the world. We have them in Brazil. We have them in Spain, Latin America, and Mexico, here in the United States. So we just had our 10th with it. We had 20-something, kids and fathers, and it was great. And why I'm going to that is because we asked that same question, is there anything that you saw, maybe specifically from your father, that you would do differently, with your sons now? And the crazy thing is, most men will tell you that they were raised with a strong hand. Father very disciplined. Most of them took spankings. The physical side. Every one of them tells you that they feel that because their father did that, it made them a better man across the board.
Absolutely.
However, they don't do the same thing with their kids.
No.
So their kids walk all over them. Their kids are playing video games for 8 hours a day. They become soft. They then almost, abdicate their role, as the leader of the home, the father figure of the home, and they give that to their wives. And, they come to this program and we push them hard, physically and mentally. And you could see that a lot of them just break and they don't get it. And then I ask a question. Your father raised you a certain way. He raised you with discipline, because they're telling me this. Why not use that same methodology, with your sons, right? They're like, well, it's just not politically correct. It's not the right thing to do. It's not, I don't want people to see me a certain way, and I want them to think that I'm this bad father. So the stigma now is that if you spank your kids, or you rectify your kids, or you discipline your kids, that is, it's a bad thing. So to answer your question, my father, he beat the crap out of me, okay? And I thank him for that, because I was a tough teenager, man. I was a tough teenager, okay? Growing up here in Miami, tough. I went with the new wave crowd. If you check out one of the episodes in Miami Vice, you'll see me there with like the big thing and the makeup on the face, just like a punk rocker, right? Like a new wave punk rocker. I went down that road, and I was going down an ugly, ugly road. I mean, I dropped out of Sunset High, actually Killian High School is what I dropped out, and, so I wasn't going down a good path. But when I came back around, I realized that what my father...
Good school, by the way.
Which one, Killian?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I go back and I'm like, yeah, my father beat the crap out of me, but it made me stronger. Now that I could see in my early 20s, when I came back around, I'm like, yeah, that discipline and that he gave me, it helped me stay on the path. It really did. I may have broken that path for a little bit, but I came back around. But he gave me a lot of love. I mean, my father's still alive, not doing too well right now, but
sorry to hear that.
He's...
How old is he?
70, I think 78.
What's his name?
My name, Rafael.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're junior?
I am junior. Well, I'm technically
RJ.
not junior, but yeah.
I'm going to call you RJ from now on.
Yeah.
Nice.
So...
it's funny that you say that, because it was totally acceptable for me growing up to have a family, a father and a mother that was a disciplinarian. My mother expected nothing but the best, and she tolerated no BS. But my father was the enforcer, and it was quick.
So let me ask you something. Is that a culture? Because I know a lot of Jewish families grow up highly disciplined. So this is why so many, I mean, you have so many successful Jewish doctors, entrepreneurs, So is it that is embedded in their culture that they expect a higher standard for their kids?
Absolutely.
Right from the ground up, huh?
So somebody asked me why there are so many Jewish doctors and lawyers and engineers and dentists. Because when during the Hitler regime, he would put all these people, obviously, in concentration camps. The last people that would lose their life were the doctors, the lawyers, the engineers, the dentists. And that's why a lot of immigrants came to this country and insisted that their children were educated.
Yeah.
Now, as far as discipline, my neighborhood growing up, every parent was tough, and every parent would discipline the kid next door.
Yeah.
You didn't get out of line. You were respectful, and you did whatever you were supposed to do. My father was super disciplined. Every day he got up early, made the same coffee, read the paper the same way, wore either a suit or a sport coat to work. Even though he was a dentist, he was emulating his father. So my grandfather, who I'm named after, Milton, he wore a suit or a 2 or 3-piece suit to work every day. And he was tough on my dad. He was a man of very few words. I don't remember him really talking that much. I remember my grandma Esther, she was more gregarious, but she was also tough. And every one of my father's, either my father's sister or my father's 3 older brothers, were tough.
Yeah.
And there was no in between.
Yeah.
And when did your father actually become loving? Because I can remember the day that it happened for me.
I'll tell you, I think when my brother, my younger brother, not youngest, but younger brother, the next in line, when he was born, I saw a shift in him immediately. It was almost like he had more experience, right? So he listen, we don't have a playbook as fathers, right?
No.
We're not given a blueprint on how to be a good dad. I mean, for God's sake, I mean, I talk about it in my book and everything. I wasn't the greatest. I failed in many aspects, but I learned and I got better. And I think the same thing happened with my father. Like the second boy, he got a little bit, he didn't have to use his hands as much, right? He still got an ass whipping, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't nearly as often. And then my third, the third in line, it was almost like nothing. And then forget it, my youngest brother, he got nothing. I mean, it was a completely different methodology. Raising him the same way, but it's almost like he now had more experience that my father could lead differently, without an ass whipping all the time.
It's funny because my father was the hardest on me, not my older brother. And when they actually used to get into a physical altercation, I used to try to side with my father because I didn't want my brother kicking my father's ass.
Right.
And my brother is one of these guys who is this brilliant guy who is spending the twilight of his life in a mental institution.
Oh, wow.
And she just got me to plan a trip to go visit him. I haven't seen him in 9 months.
Wow.
I hate it. It's horrible. If you saw one of these movies where there's a mental institution, this is what it's like. It's just a very uncomfortable situation. But I have to go. And his wife doesn't visit him, even though they're still married. And his son doesn't visit him. So I'm going to bite the bullet and go in, I think we're going in beginning of May. But then we're going to New York for a bunch of events. and then I'm not sure where. Oh, I'm speaking in a couple of the prisons, federal prisons. So it'll be a week on the road. And I can remember my brother standing toe to toe with my father. And I can remember the adrenaline in me, you know, saying, you know, what the fuck's going on here? Because my father gave everything to us. My mother did the same thing. And my father didn't actually become super loving. He didn't tell me that he loved me the way I would tell my children I love them until I actually had a child.
Right.
At age 28.
Wow.
So I can remember the dichotomy of the day. It just shifted.
But did you feel, even when your father disciplined you, that he loved you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the same way I
absolutely.
felt. My father has given me love always, always, and the unity of family has always been.
We always had dinner at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
I had my seat. My brother had his seat. My mother, she was a great cook, and a lovely wife, and a great mom. And if I got out of line, my father had gone to dental school at University of Maryland, so I had this big University of Maryland dental school ring. And he was a lefty. And he would just give me a shot with his left hand.
Yeah.
Because I sat to the left, all right? And I get a big welt on my head, and my mother would say, "Paul, why are you doing that?" And he'd say, "It's because I love him." You know, he would say that.
Yep.
And then we would go back to normal. You know, I'd be done crying. My mother would say, "Here, put some ice on your head," and we'd eat, and that was it. And I waited for anything, any moment to spend time with my father, whether it was, my father was a baseball player, so we played baseball in college at University of Connecticut. And just doing anything for him, made me feel good. It made me feel close to him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry that your dad's not doing so well. My dad, we lost him at 74.
A 74? Yeah. I mean, he's still, moving around, and he's still communicating. He still remembers everybody. He's still good. But we've seen a decline on him, and it hurts me, because I feel like, like maybe he should have taken care of himself better. My dad always was one of those that everything for the family, everything priority, family, he's last. Like don't worry about me, I got this. So so that's actually a question that you asked me before, what I would do different. That's exactly it. Take care of myself so I can be around longer in the best shape possible for my family. Yeah.
I asked you what your biggest regret is. My biggest regret is failing at my first marriage. And not having the type of relationship that I had with my 3 adult daughters. And to this day, I still wish that I had continued to stick it out. And that
How do you get along with your daughters now?
So I got along with them great up until they graduated college during me being incarcerated. And when I was released, I actually got to spend time with Madison and Carly. So I have Sarah, Madison, and Carly. And never really got to have a really meaningful conversation with Sarah. When I would call her, she would say, "Why are you calling me?" And I believe, that maybe their mother, might have clouded their judgment for the time that I was away. She is a good mom. She married a guy who is, he's a good stepfather. I just wish that they could bifurcate it so I could have a relationship with them, but I won't give up. I will continue to reach out to them. I either text them or I leave a message on their phone, usually every other day. So, and one of the things the other day I noticed that it said read. So at least I know they're reading these messages.
That's good.
So yeah. We'll
What
see. Whatever God wants, whatever God gives me, I'm going to take, and I'm going to live with, and I'm going to run with it. So God gave me you in my path, so I'm going to run with it. God gave me this young man to help me create a voice and get my voice out, and all the people around here, and you know, I think people forget that the day is a gift. And instead of us always thinking about tomorrow, let's take hold of today, take that day and do something with it. Make something of it.
I love that. There's a term in Japanese called mushin. Mushin is being present, right? Living for the moment, actually being present. And I think that a lot of men in general, a lot of people are never truly present. Like me and you could be sitting here having a conversation. You can be in cloud nine. You could, articulate your thoughts with me, but you could be thinking about where you want to go tomorrow, what's happening in an hour, what phone call you have to make. And that's the way most people are, right? There's something special when you clear your mind and you enjoy the moment and you're there. You almost savor the moment, right? There's a certain feeling and connection. So I live by that truly, where I'm and my wife gets kind of ticked off sometimes because she wants to always know ahead, right? Like, what are we going to do? What restaurant are we going to go to? What's happening? Let me see the menu for the restaurant. For me, I work in very specific phases. I'll literally go from 1 to 2 p.m. That's my phase. I'm there. I shift over from 2 to 3. I'm there. Everything is in very, very compartmentalized phases where I can focus dynamically. I look for high levels of execution in my life. And I believe that by you being present, you can do that. If I'm going to spend time with my daughter, I want to be there. If I'm going to spend time with my wife, I want to be there. My father, the family, I want to be there. I don't just want to be there physically. I want to be there mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? That's the idea. And so you have a great point. Like we have to live here. There's no guarantees that we're going to be around tomorrow.
How'd you get into social media?
Well, it was one of those things where I needed to get into the world of social media to market my product, especially my tactical training company. I started, dibbling and dabbling and figuring out how to do videos and editing, and I got into that whole world of trying to figure out how I could move the needle. We needed eyes on what we were doing in tactical training and so on. So that's pretty much how I entered through that phase. And then it was just, I just started talking to the camera. And remember one thing though, I was an undercover agent. So when I was with the DEA Tactical Diversion Squad, they didn't like the fact that I had a social media, so I had to keep it down low. When I was in Vice Narcotics, they didn't like the fact that I had a social media, so I had to keep it down low. And I get it, and I understand, so I wasn't comfortable talking to a camera. It took a while, right? I was a very private person, private life. Even to this day, the property appraiser's office, everything is blanked out. I'm very private from a law enforcement perspective. So yeah, it's one of those things where I had to learn to speak to the camera and get comfortable with it. And then once I broke the code, balls to the wall, as they say.
When did you decide that you were really going to step in front of the camera and preach the change message that you preach? Because your message is very different than a lot of people on social media. People could say, you are an alpha male, but you don't push that. You push inclusion. You push, getting in touch with your masculine side, but not sticking it in people's faces like these guys that beat women and beat their chest and they're, big muscular guys.
Yeah, so about 3 years before I I hung my badge in law enforcement. I was in the police academy, and I started seeing that just women were stronger than men across the board. The men that were coming through the academy were just not there. I mean, they were so weak in comparison that I was like, what is happening with our society? Why is it that women are actually, faster, stronger, they try harder? And I'm teaching these young cadets how to survive on the streets against the against hard-edged criminals that will break your face, rip your neck out in a second. So one of my instructor friends said to me, hey, maybe you should start a podcast. So, and I've been training the martial arts for such a long time, and I've studied the warrior mindset in depth. I've studied, anything that has to do with the Knights Templar, the Spartan warriors, the samurai, which is very important to me, the Bushido. And I always believe that men should live by a code, not just a code where it's like, yeah, I'm a good guy and I'm a good person, but a code, like actually a written code. You're a man of honor, man of integrity, a man who serves for something higher than himself. Yeah. Just a man who will lead from the front, right? Who exhibits his actions. I started talking about that, about the warrior mindset, about the warrior culture, about bridging the gap of the old warriors with today's world, how they connected, what we're missing in our society. So the podcast took off. It was, for 8 weeks, it was a new and noteworthy on the Apple Podcast. Back then, this is 2017. So it took off from there. So I figured, hey, you know what? I got to get on camera and I got to really start talking about this because people are interested in this. There's an interest. Men want this. They want to know more about, how to be not just an alpha male. We have guys, that have been that have come in very hot recently, like the Tates of the world and then some other guys that are coming in, right? Like, very, very hard edged coming into that masculinity side. But I'm talking more to a different avatar. I'm talking to typically a more successful man who has accomplished a lot in his life, but he's the fat, lazy lion on top of the mountain, becoming mediocre by the day. Just has become soft in his way.
Comfort.
Right. And that type of mediocrity is not acceptable. We need men to rise, whether they're 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. We're in 2026 now. Men should be operating at their highest possible levels at all times. And I will say this, when I started disseminating this message, I had, even now to today, there is so much pushback.
Really?
Oh, constantly. People thinking, oh no, this guy, he's toxic masculinity. So it's a challenge, but you start realizing that people start coming around and they start seeing, hey, maybe what he's saying is not wrong. Look at what he's gone through. Look at his life. Okay, I'm not perfect. I'm on a journey like everybody else. Okay, but the reality is that, I've been married for 22 years.
Beautiful.
Okay, we just celebrated our 22 years. We have, beautiful kids.
2 years is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
2 days, no.
Yeah, I mean, so, we've figured it out. And, I have, a whole troop of men who follow me. We have a very big brotherhood of men who believe in what I say. And not because I'm like this guy they worship. No, is that they connect. And they follow that sense of me being a guide for them to really figure out their life and to be better fathers, husbands, leaders, visionaries, whatever it is that they're looking to step up. And so I believe that I'm doing God's work, and I believe that I'm doing something right in my life right now. This is the season that I'm at, and it's probably going to be here for a while because I believe in it so much.
What's next?
Well, I think expansion is a key. I think I'm planning on going into the Latin America market hard now. There's a lot of lack of leadership in that market. So we're going to be stepping into that market hard now. Branding, branding my organization. And then from there, we have a couple of other ventures that we're part of now that we want to grow. And Europe is not too far away either. So we want now expansion, not just in the United States, but all over the world. That's the next step for us.
So if you want people to know one thing, however personal it is or however non-personal it is, what do you want them to know about you?
Well, about me, per se. Well,
you're the one sitting next to me.
Yeah. I'm not, sometimes I come across as very crude.
I don't get that at all.
Well, unfortunately, I get that from everybody. I come across very crude, very direct, sometimes almost too harsh, and people feel that there's a sense of me talking down to them. And I want people to know right off the bat that I am, if I'm speaking out that way, I speak harder to myself every single day. I am so hard on myself. My execution level, there is no rhythm for failure at all. There is no room for me, oops, I made a mistake. I don't even think that way, right? It's everything has to be almost like perfect in my life. Execution. Of course, I fail many times because I fail all the time, really, but I learn from it. So take this from me. When I speak a certain way, it's usually because I've dialed into me and I have been harder on myself and I know the things work. So when I speak from a place of experience, of knowledge, and of love. And that's what people need to see.
So tell everybody where they can find you.
You guys can go to Man of War with 2 R's, and also just look up Man of War Crucible. That's one of our main programs, and it'll lead you right into the Man of War universe, where we have several. We have the Conde University, we have Man of War Media, we have the Odyssey program, several different verticals that you can find, and there's just, we have a pretty wide world. Anything that you want to be a stronger father, husband, leader, visionary, really a man of action that we need in 2026.
When's your next event?
4 days, 5 days.
4 days.
I just came out of one. Now we're going to Pensacola, and then I'll be back in South Florida, and then I'll be back in Guatemala. So we are straight through now, all the way through June.
Amazing. Yeah. And there's a prerequisite to being part of the event?
To being part of the Crucible per se, you got to go through a selection process. You have to put in an application. You'll meet with one of our coaches, and they'll speak to you about 20 minutes, half hour. And then if you get selected to be part of this, and let me say something. There's a lot of man camps out there that came after us, okay, trying to copy some of the things that we do. But we've been around now since 2018. Okay, we are the OG. Okay, let me give you an example. My wife is sitting across from us here. Every single ribbon that is done for every man that attends this event, my wife and my daughter pray over those ribbons. She does it by hand. So this is a little different. This is not like your typical hazing festival where they're getting, Navy SEAL contractors to come and teach. All of our instructors are men who have shined in their crucible that eventually get selected and get promoted to be coaches. This is a very powerful component in what we have. We care about the people that go through this program from the heart, from the bottom of our heart. And, we're going to have a documentary film now in a couple of days. There's a huge documentary out of Europe. It's going to be all, and then we have another documentary that was already filmed. They're going to be filming the second part of it coming up. So we'll have some nice exposure moving forward. So we're hoping that this really takes it to that next level.
Well, number one, please share that with me. I'd love to see that documentary.
Yeah.
And number two, I want to thank you for being so transparent and so open. I hope I didn't offend you with any questions.
Not at all, man.
I don't think I
Not at
can.
all. You're the easiest person that I know to talk to. You're super chill, and because you're that deep too, this is why we have great conversations, you know? So I appreciate you.
You hungry?
Yeah, I'm ready
Good.
to eat.
Guys, Mark, Shapiro TV, the man of war. Whoever else is pretending to be this guy is not. And I know a lot of those guys. They're not this guy. They didn't come from the ilk that he came from. They didn't go through the process. And he is redefining what it is to be a father, to be a man, to be a husband, to be a friend. So, you want to learn a little bit more? Reach out to Rafa, Man of War with 2 R's. Let's go. Guys, if you like this video and you want to learn more about the art of investing in multifamily real estate, then I want you to click the link in the description below. At Shapiro Capital, that is exactly what we do. Our community is designed to show you every nook and cranny in the real estate business, and it has helped our students close over $200 million in deals to date. So if you are ready to begin the process of mastering the multifamily business, I want you to click the link below. We can start building your portfolio today. Let's go!